It is spring game time in Waco. Baylor against Baylor. Does this even matter?
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to Locked On Baylor. I am going to see Tyler Childers in concert tonight from Sports Illustrated's Inside the Bears, and that is PicKell. Not only is he the former color analyst for China Spring Football, he's a Baylor football player, a Cornell football player, worked for Sikkim 365 for a long time, is now a national college football analyst at On3, and we want to thank you for making Locked On Baylor your first listen every single day. JD, Blonde Boys Power Half Hour is back. It is spring ball in Waco, and the Bear Games question of the day: does the spring football game matter for anything to anybody?
Well, first, I'm fired up to be on. This feels like deja vu. Second, I think it's all in the eye of the beholder, right? Like, and on one hand, if you're a junkie like you and I are, you're like, great, 11-on-11 football. We got tackling for 10 of the 11 players on the field, on the offense. Like, this is great. On the other side, you're like, such a tease. It's not necessarily, the highest of stakes, but it's just like a little bit of an appetizer before we get to the main course in the fall. So how much does it matter? I always say the spring game is more for taking a temperature, not for making absolutes. Like, you're not winning the Heisman Trophy in the spring game. You're not winning the national title from your spring game performance. We've also seen a lot of guys have phenomenal spring games, and then 2 years later in the portal looking for a new place to play. So I think it matters to a degree, but just enjoy it. Take it at face value. We got college football back on the TV. It's a beautiful thing.
JD, obviously you and I will look at this spring game and any spring game across the country with a very analytical eye. How is a quarterback's footwork? How good do they zip that football in there? The wide receivers, speed, footwork, route capabilities. But for the general college football fan that's just looking to see hat on hat, green on gold, how do you dissect it? How do you efficiently watch a spring football game when, man, some of these universities and teams probably aren't going truly 100%?
Yeah, I think some part of it is, for me, I'm looking at like, what's the overall operation look like? And what I mean by that is, like, there's going to be penalties because there's a certain amount of sloppiness to expect in practice 15 because it is a glorified practice. But on the other hand, you're like, okay, are those penalties like, hey, we can't get lined up right, we got too many guys in line of scrimmage and we're having procedural penalty? Or is it, hey, we held the defensive end on that stretch play, it's an effort penalty, we'll clean that up? Like, how far along are we in terms of doing our job? Like, the number of missed assignments you'd like to see cut down on, but I'm looking for like effort mistakes as opposed to just like, hey, lights on, nobody's home kind of mistakes, if you catch my drift. So, and then on top of that, I mean, this is also a great chance to show the recruits in town this is what we're all about. I mean, Ohio State, I think last weekend had something like 70,000+. Colorado has their spring game sold out this coming weekend. And, it's sort of a meme in a sense to people on social media. Like, hey, you had a bunch of people at your practice. Good for you. But like, recruits get wowed by that. They start to kind of visualize themselves in the game day atmosphere. For a lot of these kids, they're going to decide before their senior season. So in that way, it's kind of a spectacle as well. So I'm looking at crowd size, I'm looking at overall operation, and just kind of the buzz around it all. So that's one of the things I'm looking at when it comes to taking the temperature.
See, and you've seen this as a player. You've been in the locker room. You've been ready for a spring game, and even from a coach's or analyst perspective, there are spring games that take place weekly. There are scrimmages that take place weekly in-house for these teams. Is this weekend for Baylor more so for the fans than it is the coaches? Can a coach learn something that he didn't already see in last Saturday's scrimmage behind the scenes?
Yeah, that's a really good question, Drake. And I think to some extent, like, you kind of know who your dudes are. The thing that I would look for in these kind of scenarios is the beautiful part about going 11-on-11 and having a whistle and moving the ball is like, competition is not going to lie to you. Like, either you can do it behind closed doors or you can't, and that's great. But when the lights come on, when you got fans in the stands, when it's a game-like scenario, you find out kind of who has the juice to rise to the occasion. And again, it is just a spring game. It is just practice 15. But I think there is something to be said for seeing what your guys are like with a little bit more pressure on them. And the fact that it's broadcasted as well, I think adds some juice to it. So kind of seeing the not the brightest of lights, but it's lights nonetheless, which is kind of enjoyable to see.
Right. You get your new guys on campus. to get a taste of what the Saturday in McLean is going to feel like for the new Baylor guys that are here. One of the things that I have always hated about the spring game is that mostly everything, actually. There is so little that we can take away from a spring game and say, oh, shoot, Baylor's going to be good next year, because everyone's spring game should be, aside from Florida, what was there, like 10-7 final? Everyone's spring game should hype up your team. That's the whole point of having this thing. So, JD, you and I sat together in the sun 2 years ago for a spring game that preceded a 12-win Sugar Bowl championship, Big 12 championship season for Baylor, and we both walked away a little underwhelmed. How much do these spring games lie to fans? We were sitting there with the analyst's eye. How much do these games lie to people?
I think if you go looking for something, like if you're looking to find the answer about how good can Jacob Zeno be in 2020, I guess when it was at that point.
That's a name right there.
Right?
That is a name.
That was what we were watching. We're like, hey, it's going to be Jacob Zeno's team. What does he look like? And then he didn't necessarily spin it super well. And we're like, okay, well, I don't know how that makes me feel about 2021 for Baylor. But then we saw Gary Bohannon do a lot of really good things. So I think it's kind of philosophical to say, I think it can lie to you as much as you allow it to. Like if you're looking to make an absolute statement about your quarterback position or about, your running back position, you just kind of want to see flashes. Like I want to see the early enrollees do something. I want to see, how the defensive line responds to a moving football and having a little bit more tempo, just stuff like that. So will it lie to you? 100%. But I think as long as you understand there's a certain amount of just dishonesty baked into this whole thing, that's kind of just part of it, which is unfortunate. But also, like I said, the fact that we got 11 on 11 again is just a gorgeous thing in itself.
Saturday, November 14th, 2019, Charlie Brewer is ready. It's Oklahoma and Baylor college game day. I mean, through Charlie's head, this guy's as fired up as it'll get. Baylor goes up 28-3, instant classic game. Everybody, it's as juiced as it can get. Fast forward a year's time, less than 8 months, he's walking through the exact same tunnel, helmet on, ready to play against his twos. How much different from an athlete's perspective is the spring game compared to actually lacing them up against another school? And with that, do you want to see schools pick up spring games against other universities, as we've heard murmurs about?
Yeah, it's kind of a hot topic right now. I'll start with the first part of that question when it comes to, how is it different from, you're playing an opponent versus you're playing, the same color jersey essentially.
Right.
I think mentally you find out a little bit about how much sense of urgency your team has, which for some teams I think means more than others. I mean, LSU is going to be interesting to watch. Colorado's going to be interesting to watch. But what I mean by that is when Charlie Brewer walked out on the field when college game day is in town and Waco is on fire for that entire day and the buzz is electric in McLean, like he doesn't have to manufacture any juice. Like he didn't have to get himself up for that game. But when you walk in and it's a Saturday, essentially mid-morning, it's Saturday, noon, give or take. Yeah. You're walking out there and there might be a crowd. There might not be, it's the last day of spring football. Your body's beat up. It's practice 15. Like you're going to get a break after this. You're trying not to overlook it. Like if there were ever an opportunity to like take your foot off the gas or lose some focus, that would be like the exact opportunity to do that. And so for me, seeing the guys finish through, even if it is a guy like Charlie Brewer who is going to run with the ones and he'll be out there for, hey, Charlie, you got 2 drives, make the most of it. Like I want to see just the sense of urgency to finish through. So I think that's the difference in terms of the psyche approach. The second part of that conversation, which I think is wildly fascinating right now, is, should other teams pick up, I think Hugh Freeze said, should Auburn pick up like a UAB or Alabama play, Alabama A&M. I think there's 2 sides to this. The first side is, as a fan, like it'd be awesome. Like I would give my left arm to watch Auburn play UAB tomorrow, and it'd be great. And I wouldn't do that in the fall. So, and
you sure? Oh, wait a second. Are you sure you would give your entire left arm?
Cut it off, baby.
For one spring football game between Auburn and UAB, you never used your left arm again.
If we get college game day in the morning and they're at Jordan-Hare and we get to like have the full experience, like cut it off. Maybe at the elbow. Maybe not the whole arm. Maybe at the elbow.
2 fingers. I'll give you 2 fingers. We're good.
Yeah, I'm a desperate man right now, Drake. But the other piece of this, so that's the fan part, like, would be awesome. My concern with this is spring is about competition, yes, but more so internal.
Yeah.
And to go out there and go 11 on 11, the example I used when we talked about it on our own platform was, if I'm, the UAB second string safety and I see the Auburn star wide receiver come across the middle, Camden Brown's about to catch a pass, and if I'm his teammate in that situation in the spring game, I'm going to kind of just make the tackle or tag off. But if I'm the UAB second string safety, I'm like, dude, this is my moment. I'm about to throw my entire being through this dude's frame and like just genuinely try to deliver as much force as possible. So I think obviously there's a risk in any competitive setting, but the internal competition that you get to develop your guys and just the safety part of it, I think that you trust your guys to take care of each other in the spring. That to me, I think is why I'd lean away from it. Now, there's also the conversation of should they at least have the option. And if you know the risks and you want to go for it, go for it. But I, for one, if I'm coaching a team, I'm saying we're going to keep it internal. We'll get good work internally. And this is what I'm rambling here. But the other thing is you cut your reps in half. Like if I got my one offense going, and we're playing another team, my 2 defense or my 1 defense, they're going to have to watch. So that's less tape for us to evaluate. So as a coach, I wouldn't like it, but I mean, to each his own.
Yeah. JD, I want your thoughts now on Baylor individually. You played in the program under Matt Rule for a while. You've got Dave Aranda now, who is leading a team that went 6-7 last season. And while it doesn't innately talk about, I don't want to innately talk about the spring game necessarily, but just the state of the program from a national perspective. But first, JD, you talk about your teammates. You talk about the ability for people to work together and work with me, folks. JD's not going anywhere. Work with me by eating a Built Bar. I start every day. Here's how I start my day. I go to, here's my mini fridge back here, if you can see it. I take one of these puppies. It's a candy apple crisp bang. That's a candy apple crisp bang. I drink an entire one of those in the morning and usually in the evening as well, and eat a Built Bar. Built is great. They got so many great flavors. They taste healthy, but they also taste good. They are healthy. They don't taste healthy. They're 100% real dark chocolate, real actual chocolate, 17 grams of protein in one little bar, only 4 grams of sugar, only 130 calories. Get it at your local Walmart. Get it at a Sam's Club. You can get it at Built.com if you like to order things online. You get all of these unique flavors like double chocolate bar or coconut puff or cream bar, cookies and cream too, 4-bar box at Walmart, 13-bar box at Sam's Club. I'm telling you, I am better off now because of Built Bar. You can thank me later. Go try it. Built.com, Sam's Club, Walmart. Built.com, Sam's Club, Walmart, Built Bar. JD, I can only imagine those biceps of yours are a product of Built Bar. I can only imagine. You and I, man, we worked together for a long time in different capacities. I say long time. I mean, I guess short in how relative life is, but a long time from China Spring to Baylor Athletics, covering everything, right? And now you've moved up in this role, your program that you have every day with On3. You get to see the scope of college football and talk to characters like Urban Meyer, who have been at the pinnacle of this sport. And in that, I know as someone who wore the helmet, you still have that Baylor tie, that Baylor connection. When you think Dave Aranda, Baylor Bears, circa 2023, what pops into your head as someone who gets to see all of football?
I think the feel that I have on Baylor right now is just that it is building. And I don't mean to say that and that it's a rebuild, because they've already won the Big 12 title under him before. And I think the fact that he's done that just proves like, hey, there's proof of concept. Like Dave Aranda, the first year he was in the role, it's a COVID year. We're all kind of like, this is weird. He's been a head coach before. Is he the right guy for the job? Like, wholeheartedly believe Dave Aranda is the right guy for the job. I think it's a lot of recalibration right now. And I think personnel-wise, they're addressing some things that they didn't have last season. Because, Drake, you and I were both in the building when Blake Shapen went just bonkers, stepping in for Gary Bohannon in the Big 12 title game. We're all like, dude, Blake Shapen's winning the Heisman Trophy next year. And, like, we're all obviously victims of the moment, but also there was, Drew Estrada on that team. There was Tyquan Thornton on that team. Like, there was a lot of guys, Abram Smith was on that team. There was a lot of guys that I think made his job substantially easier. in terms of even just like how defenses could play him. Like last year, Baylor to me felt not quite as dynamic offensively. And so I think retooling that and having other guys, take the next step. A Monterey Baldwin take the next step. A Richard Reese take the next step. Guys like that to be able to sort of amplify his own abilities. I think that's going to be crucial, especially early in the year to give him some more confidence, because I think Baylor still has a lot on the table for them, and I think they're always going to be a force with Dave Aranda at a head coach spot. But, I'm just curious to see how much their personnel is able to step up, and some of the guys they brought in via the portal as well.
JD, player A, create player A, 6 foot tall, 200-pound sophomore from Louisiana, has thrown now for 3,000 yards in his collegiate career and say 23 touchdowns, 10 interceptions. Player B, 6'4", 215 pounds, got the frame, has thrown 11 attempts, 23 yards, and a pick all time. Now, here's the big reveal. Player A is Blake Shapen. Player B, Sawyer Robertson out of Mississippi State. To me, while there is a great quarterback battle going on, the experience, especially in today's college football, where teams are plucking from the portal to get more experience and not have as many young guys on the field, experience is paramount. Are you seeing that in quarterback battles across the country? And do you expect to see that in Waco?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think the first part of that is absolutely like places like Ohio State. You're hearing Kyle McCord's kind of got the lead in the job, but Devin Brown's nipping at his heels. Kyle McCord's just been around the program longer. Jalen Milroe is it sounds like has the ever so slight edge at Alabama, and of course all of this is subject to change. But so I think being within the system is really important, and having that continuity. I think also one thing that I don't know gets talked about enough. Winning over the locker room. Like these guys have seen Blake Shapen in the foxhole, and they know like, hey, push comes to shove. Fourth quarter, I know Blake Shapen's not going to flinch. Like I know what he's made of. Whereas Sawyer Robertson, not that he doesn't still have that same edge about him, but there's something to proving it to your teammates. And your team is substantially better when your quarterback is not just your quarterback, but he's like the guy. If that makes sense, we talk about that a lot, being the quarterback versus being the guy. And so I'm just curious to see how much ground Sawyer Robertson is able to make up during spring ball and how those guys respond to him when they take the field. Because physically, like you said, I mean, the build is there. You would imagine having been at Mississippi State, that's not a team that takes quarterbacks that can't sling the ball a little bit when Mike Leach was there, rest in peace. But so I think that's going to be really fascinating. And one thing Baylor fans, I think, can rest assured is Dave Aranda is going to give it to the quarterback based on merit. I mean, we saw Gary Bohannon fresh off a Sugar Bowl win. Tells him, hey, we appreciate you so much. Blake Shapen gives us the best chance to win football games. And so I have full confidence that even with Blake Shapen's experience and all he's done for Baylor, if Sawyer Robertson is the better quarterback for the job, Dave Aranda has no problem pulling that trigger and letting Blake Shapen know ahead of time.
Not to mention RJ Martinez, who has thrown for 5,000 yards in college football now, a transfer from NAU with more experience than both combined far and away, who is a dark horse in this race as well. So 3 guys vying for that spot. But JD, we've talked about Dave Aranda, Baylor football, and where this program is going into next season, the new Big 12, everything. Baylor has now picked up, I think now we're double 10 transfers from the portal, which is far and away a record for Dave Aranda in this program, a record for Baylor. In college basketball, we see programs like Kansas State Jerome Tang use the portal to become a powerhouse in the sport. Football, though, it takes more than 3 good guys to build an entire program. Are you seeing these teams that are plucking from the portal consistently winning right away? And is that a formula that's going to work long-term for schools, Baylor and beyond?
I think it is just such a new thing to where the data is still a little bit inconclusive as to how successful you can be via the portal. I think there's no doubt, given the right set of players and given the right circumstances, which is, kind of a no-duh statement here, it can work. Like, obviously, USC is a great example. Flipped the whole thing in a year, went from 4-8 to playing for a Pac-12 title and being in New Year's Six Bowl because they got, freak show in Caleb Williams, a lot of other great skill players. I think long-term, though, you're going to see there has to also be the culture element that fits in with it. And I think that the schools that use the portal well, and quite frankly, while some schools are steering clear of it, I mean, Clemson's like, hey, we're not really taking anybody from the portal if we can help it, unless we have a really good background check on them, from what our coaching staff does. Because that's the one thing that can really poison the water for you. Having talent is great. Having guys that fit your scheme is great. But if they're not a fit culturally, it's ultimately going to be a net negative in my mind. So to answer your question more directly, though, I think the portal definitely can make you better. But I think there's a strategic way to use it. It can't be necessarily an overhaul every single year. You don't want to live. We have a coworker of mine that says you don't want to live paycheck to paycheck in the portal. You want to have a steady influx and be able to kind of, borrow some money here, borrow some money there when you need to. But more likely than not, you want to, grow it in-house and then be able to course correct with little tweaks, little players.
JD, before we get you out of here, what was your favorite up-tempo memory? Do you have a favorite up-tempo memory?
Oh, man. That's a great question.
Think about this. So I have it pulled up right here. April 20th of 2021, breaking down Big 12 hires. I don't know what that means, but we now 2 years ago were talking about whatever topics were coming up together in the studio 2 years ago today.
I'm nervous to see this, to be honest.
Oh, no, I couldn't pull it up. I tried to do
Oh, okay. Oh, gosh. I was like, oh, man. What was about to happen?
Do you have it won't pull up. That's so sad. Do you have, though, I don't even know what that means, breaking down Big 12 hires. Do you have your favorite up-tempo memory, though?
It's a little bit off-brand, and so I don't know if we totally claim it as up-tempo, but when Baylor made the Final Four in basketball, it was you, myself, Armstrong Sims, and I remember Mark Vital, I think, had like a putback dump or like a one-hand alley-oop dunk. And it was just the three of us in studio, but like we collectively lost our mind. And I think that was just such a perfect depiction of what went into the show. Like, it was passion, it was energy, it was guys that just genuinely enjoyed hanging out in a makeshift, what used to be like apartment lobby, now made a studio. And just talking ball. So that was a blast, man. I'll forever cherish, those memories. And we could do a whole other podcast on just great memories from our broadcasts together. But yeah, that would definitely be one that's top of mind right now.
Oh, dude, it was great. I today, 2 years ago today, you were wearing our up-tempo, the up-tempo quarter zip that you made. You created
I still have it. Still have it.
Oh my gosh! It's this yellow up-tempo quarter zip. I got my glasses on. I can't believe. I wish I could pull it up on the screen. I got my glasses on. You dude, what a time to be together. What a time that we had at up-tempo.
We wore sunglasses pretty frequently. And I remember there was one point in time, and I don't even know why. There was a point in time where I just felt like, hey man, these glasses kind of put up the protective wall from everybody in this, because you're kind of on edge. I'd never done anything live before, and I'm I kind of feel safe behind these glasses. Ricky Williams wearing there it is. Yeah, that must have been before the glasses, dude.
That's 2 years ago today.
Look right there.
That's later in the show. That's later in the show. No sunglasses on, but
yeah, that must have been pre-glasses era. That's so fun.
Oh, I think the entire thing was glasses era. We would get some method into the show. Actually, you know what I think it is? I won't reveal all of our secrets here, but I think it's after we'd had a conversation with certain people at the company about wearing glasses. So we couldn't wear glasses that day.
It's a good teaching point. Good teaching point. That's so funny, man.
We learned a lot.
What a good ride it was.
Frequently. Oh, dude, that was awesome. We did have a heck of a time for that Final Four. The Arkansas win when Baylor bought the ticket to the Final Four. I was playing Arkansas that night, and we had cameras on in the studio going nuts. So
that was so funny.
Oh, dude, that feels good. Feels good to reminisce. JD, just congrats, man, on everything. It's awesome. I know Baylor fans are rooting for you, obviously, much more than they're rooting for me sometimes even. And it means a lot you come on the show today, dude. You have done so much to help put Baylor further on the map and really to help further college football. And a lot of the stories that don't always get told, coaches that don't always get national exposure, you've built a really awesome thing in On3.
Man, well, I really appreciate that. I'm very, very grateful to have worked with you and for our paths to have crossed. And I appreciate having me on the show, man. Likewise, this is a phenomenal platform. Keep crushing it. And I'm excited to continue to watch you just ascend. I mean, you're not even, 20-something days till you graduate? I mean,
24. Who's counting?
Unreal, man. I'm extremely excited to watch all the amazing things you do. But I appreciate you saying that.
We'll run it back one day. Same studio. We'll
Can't
bring
wait.
Armstrong back and we'll run it back. I'm Drake Tolt from Sports Illustrated's Inside the Bears. That's JD PicKell for the Hard Count on 3. Catch him every day on YouTube. This has been, it always will be. Come back tomorrow because Blake Shapen's going to be the starting quarterback for Baylor University. And I'll tell you why on Locked On Baylor.